Because I feel like it's good to know what not having your parents around would feel like how to make your, the right choices, your own choices and decisions, what you would act like without your parents. It's just important to see that. So if there's anything wrong, you can fix that or whatever.
This is Andrew Petty is Dying, where we tap into the power of our mortality to become the people we were made to be and live the lives we were made to live. I'm your host, Andrew Petty, and I'm dying. I hate to say it, but so are you.
About a year ago, I became captivated by the idea of creating rites of passage experiences for our boys when each of them turned 13, an age that to me represents the transition from childhood to young manhood. I don't remember what first turned me on to the idea, but once it took root in my heart and mind, it didn't let go. I explored the idea further through my own reading about traditional rites of passage, and in a conversation with my coach, Amy Musson, in episode 60, called Rites of Passage, How Reviving Neglected Rituals Can Set You Free. I became more and more persuaded of its importance, and more determined to make it happen for our boys. But I've dreamed big with nothing to show for it before, and in the midst of life's normal everyday demands, it would have been a lot easier not to do. Long story short, this episode is a triumphant fist pump. My wife and I recently pulled off our first rite of passage experience for our older son, McGray. Today, McGray shares what it was like for him and what it meant to him. Parents with kids still at home, I hope you'll listen closely to McGray's words and be persuaded to craft a rite of passage for your kids too, if you haven't already. Everyone else, broaden your application of this episode to any of life's other major transitions: marriage, midlife, job changes, the death of a loved one, for example. How can ritual accompany those transitions in ways that acknowledge the incredible energy contained within them and channel it in positive ways? What collateral damage will failure to attach ritual to those transitions cause? What benefits might it bring? Before we dive in, some insight into the specifics of McGray's rite of passage experience will be useful. First, we created a guide that we called The Path to Your Rite of Passage. It shared a bit about the historical precedent for rites of passage and the three traditional phases: preparation, transition, and reintegration, outlined what he could expect for his own rite of passage, and clarified what would be expected of him. In the preparation phase, McGray was expected to watch and listen to a handful of videos and podcast episodes we hand-picked for him and share what he learned with us. In the transition phase, characterized by mental and physical challenge, he was charged with hiking to and successfully crossing the Devil's Causeway, an exposed high-elevation ridge of rock in a nearby wilderness area. The reintegration phase had two parts. First, a campfire council of the elders with me, my dad, and my father-in-law, where we read prepared letters to him of encouragement, exhortation, and instruction, and officially welcomed him into young manhood. Second, upon his return from the campfire council of the elders, a party with the whole family to welcome him back into the family as a young man. McGray shared some reflections about his rite of passage experience with the family at that gathering, and his mom and two grandmas read their letters to him too. Now, I invite you into a candid conversation with my firstborn son, McGray, recorded in the comfort of his room just a day after the big party with the family, to hear what the rite of passage experience was like for him and what it meant to him. Mac Attack, what did you think of the idea of your rite of passage experience when we first shared it with you?
Well, I really thought it was cool in the way that it felt like kind of a ritual, sort of like tribal sort of thing. Like, like all the weird African dances, and thought it was just cool in that kind of way, like the transformation, I guess.
What's cool to you about the idea of a ritual and participating in a ritual yourself, as opposed to other cultures that do those kinds of things? Why does that appeal to you?
Well, it was just different from our culture, I guess. Yeah, I liked it, though. It was fun, definitely.
And that was about a month ago that we first started talking to you about it. Do you remember how you were feeling when we were first talking about it? Were you like, this is weird, or I get it, or I don't get it, or what's this all about? Why at 13?
Well, it was more sort of I guess not nervous is the only word that comes to mind, but that wasn't exactly what it felt like. It was reasonable, I'm not a child anymore. I'm changing, so it kind of made sense to do it now as opposed to 16 or 18 or whatever, but
So you're aware that you're changing. This is a transitional stage of life for you. And so in that sense, it made sense to do now.
Yeah.
What ways are you aware of that you're developing as a human? And what makes this moment in time feel especially that way to you?
Oh, well, there's definitely, obviously, body, like voice and hair and stuff like that. I just felt like I was going to take on more responsibility, as in freedom, I guess. Although that would depend on some things. But
Like what? What do you mean it would depend on some things?
like just trust and stuff. And then, well, because that leads to freedom, as you like to say. Honesty leads to freedom.
Yeah, honesty leads to freedom. Trust leads to freedom. Fulfilling responsibilities can lead to freedom. When you think of being held more responsible for yourself and your actions now that you've gotten older, are you glad about that, sad about that, mad about that, some combination? Because that's one thing we're asking of you is as you transition from boy to young man and begin this transition that you begin to assume more responsibilities. How do you feel about that?
It's definitely different because definitely when you're younger, like 5 through 10, it's more regulation because obviously you want to stay safe, right? There's also like dangerous and bad stuff that could harm you. So it's more like not really protection, but like say you're 5 and you're swimming in a lake. You'd obviously have to have a life jacket and be within range and view of your parents, right? But when you get older, it's like, well, maybe you won't have the life jacket, or maybe you can go play with your friends without parents or adults. It just changes in that sort of way of like supervision sort of thing. Like, we have to keep you safe, just stuff like that.
What's important about that change occurring for you at this stage of life and moving forward? Why would Mom and I be interested in that for you?
Because I feel like it's good to know what not having your parents around would feel like how to make your the right choices, your own choices and decisions, what you would act like without your parents. It's just important to see that. So if there's anything wrong, you can fix that or whatever.
There will come a time when we won't be around, whether it's because something's happened, hopefully not, to one of us or both of us. But it could happen. Again, hopefully not. Or because you've just gotten to the age where it's appropriate and time for you to be on your own. And Mom and I are very interested in setting you and your brother, Marshall, up for success by the time it's time to be responsible completely for yourselves in the world. So this coming of age, this rite of passage is one way to symbolize the fact that you're moving more towards the stage where every thought, every decision, every action that you make is your responsibility and its consequences are too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like that idea? I mean, does that, as a young man, does that feel good and appropriate? Does it feel...
What do you mean, like the
idea of being held more responsible for yourself?
It definitely is more appropriate because you need to know how to obviously manners, how to act around others so that you're enjoyable. Mm-hmm. You've taught us a lot of that. Yeah, I just think it's really reasonable to start doing that at this point in time where we can do that. Your first school dance, you can go with your friends or whatever. Mm-hmm. When I did that was pretty fun.
How do you feel about the fact that Mom and I created this experience for you? How does it make you feel as our son?
It makes me feel like, I guess, special, or making it a bigger deal than other comings of age would be. If I turn 10, first double digits, that's the time to celebrate. And then first tween time or whatever, first birthday especially. It's definitely just more important to draw more attention to the special parts, like me turning 13, from childhood to manhood.
Mm-hmm. Does it feel like a significant turning point in your life?
Yeah, it really does. Like I was saying, it's taking on more responsibility, so it's well, here we go, I gotta handle this or that. Or
what was an especially memorable part of your rite of passage experience? There were a bunch of different elements over the course of the past month. There was, of course, our Devil's Causeway experience, which was the physical and mental challenge. There was the Campfire Council of the Elders this weekend. There was the regathering and reuniting with the family at your party yesterday.
I feel like the Devil's Causeway was super fun. Get to go with Grandpa or Papa and you just being men,
What do you mean? What do you mean us just being men? Just doing guy stuff?
Like doing a really loud fart and then like giving ratings and opinions and
Yep. Not having to say excuse me, just
Yeah.
letting it rip.
letting it rip and then like, oh, that was good. Nice.
What else was memorable, especially memorable about this whole experience?
Mostly how it was all I had time was devoted from each person just to be there for me. Like, oh, I just aged one more time. It's just another number, but it's definitely more of an important number. It's first teen years. So, yeah, it was pretty cool how everyone took their time and took out some time for me to, come celebrate my birthday or, go on hikes or camping or...
Yeah, they really did. All the members of the family made time, especially for you, just because of you, to acknowledge that this was a big transition in your life. And me, Mom, Granddad, Grandma, Mima and Papa all wrote you letters and spent a lot of thoughtful time doing that. And Papa and Granddad went camping along with us, and Grandma and Granddad came out from Virginia to be with you. And so I'm really glad you're aware that there was special investments of time and energy made in you, because we believe in you and we love you deeply and want you to know that and feel supported and loved and protected as you move forward into this next stage of life. How has your rite of passage experience affected you? What difference has it made? And I realize it really just ended literally yesterday. We had the final birthday party and the kind of the culminating regathering to the family experience. But what are you aware of in terms of how it's affected you and what difference it might have made?
I feel like coming back to the family as, an official young man, I thought it was pretty cool when, they all came and listened to me, and because I did talk for all of them. But
And just for our listeners, you're referring specifically to the opportunity that you were given to say some things to the family, not just to hear from us and to celebrate with you, but for you to express some things to the family too.
yeah, both my grandmothers and my mom, they read their letters to me. That was pretty cool.
A lot of tears during that.
Yeah, those were pretty good letters. I thought it was cool how they took this time to go write these things for me, and how they listened to me so intently, and just felt like I was a big deal.
You are a big deal, dude. You are a big deal. Your life has tremendous value. All of our lives do. And there's no such thing as a human that isn't changing the world every day just by the way they show up.
Yeah.
And who you are and how you are absolutely makes a difference in who and how other people are able to be.
Yeah.
And you're in a stage of life where there's some awesome experiences and some really tough experiences too, especially at school with different kinds of kids and stuff. And we want you to be well equipped to encounter any experience that comes your way and be able to, even if it doesn't go perfectly well, be able to learn from those things.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to parents out there who maybe have thought about doing something like this for their kid or have never thought about doing it for their kids, whether it's a boy or a girl or whether it's 13 or not? What would you say to them?
I'd say just do it, go for it. Because it's really nothing really bad can happen unless you get mauled by a bear camping, or then that's when it went wrong. No, not saying that happened, but just go for it. It's just a really cool experience to give your child, I guess, making them a big deal. That's especially what I liked. So I'd say just go for it.
Well, and I'd add to that something that my coach, Amy Musson, and I talked about in the previous episode that I recorded about Rites of Passage, is that this kind of an experience is certainly for the initiate, in this case, McGray, as they transition, but it's also especially for the parents and the family close to that person, because it gives us an opportunity to acknowledge that our child is moving into a next phase of life and to mourn the leaving behind of the childhood phase in this case, and to be able to more fully psychologically and emotionally embrace the new phase. Because if we were to continue to relate to McGray as a child, beyond this point. It wouldn't make sense to him. It wouldn't make sense to him developmentally. We would really be holding him back. So when Karis and I talked about, probably, 2.5 months ago, we started talking about what we would do and when and how. And on 2 occasions when we started talking about it in greater detail, McGray, we started crying. We were really surprised by that because we realized, my goodness, we really are going to be inviting McGray into young manhood and also intentionally saying goodbye to his childhood. And that was really sad for us because this has been a really wonderful first 13 years. And it can be hard as a parent to let go of your child, but it's also very important for us to be able to let go of you as you grow up and to be able to release you into the world well equipped to do your own thing. It would be inappropriate and unhealthy of us to try to stay plugged into your life in ways that you don't need any longer. It would limit your ability to become who you were made to be. And so for parents listening who haven't done this, who haven't considered it, or maybe have considered it but have held back from doing something like this, to acknowledge the changes in season in your kids' lives, if for no other reason, there are many reasons, but if for no other reason, it's an important way for you to let go of your child as they develop and not keep them stuck in the way that you treat them and are chronically over-responsible for them. Anything else on your mind as you think about the Rite of Passage experience you've just concluded? Anything that sticks out to you? Anything you want to say to the listeners? Any just final thoughts you have?
Yeah, I would definitely say just do it because it's definitely good to give your child attention to that. But yeah, just go for it.
Go for it. I like it. I have one more question, and that is, we made that leather binder for you with all the letters and things in it. What's it like to have that leather binder?
It's cool because it's like almost like a piece of history. It's like the Campfire Council of Elders, whatever it was. Thought that was pretty cool. It's like, once again, like making it a big deal.
I'd thought a lot about that Campfire Council of Elders experience. And what was that like for you? Did it feel awkward? Did it feel cool? Did it feel awkward and cool? Was it boring? And you can say whatever it actually was. You won't hurt my feelings.
No, it was pretty cool.
Were you able to keep tracking with the letters, or was it hard to pay attention? Or
no, it was easy because I definitely thought it was cool though to actually hear what they had to say about me because I've never heard that before. Obviously,
yeah, they'd given a lot of time and thought to crafting a letter specifically for you and about you and to you. Yeah, and I hope, McGray, that you'll read and reread those over the years, and when it comes time to have your own kids, it's something that you'll share with them to say, here's what my elders shared with me and some things that are important for you too. And Mom and I hope that this is a tradition that you'll pass on in your family for generations to come, of helping our kids become fully grown and capable adults. Dude, I love you. Nice job on your Rite of Passage experience. There were things you needed to do and accomplish and overcome, and you did them all in time. Participated with a lot of enthusiasm, and it was just a really special thing to do with you and for you. And I'm excited about the man you're becoming, and I look forward to many more days walking with you. Love you, dude.
Love you more.
Nuh-uh. Love you more. And for all of you out there listening, remember, you are going to die, but you're not dead yet. So get after it.
Yeah.
Folks, the Rite of Passage experience was more meaningful and rewarding than either my wife or I expected it to be. The family party was a tearful and joyful exclamation mark on the whole process. I'm so glad we put in the time and energy to pull it all together. The truth is, however, that McGray didn't magically transform into a fully mature, fully responsible young man simply because he had a Rite of Passage experience. Nor does it ensure that he will become such a man. The ritual doesn't create the reality, but it does make way for the reality. Having officially bid farewell to his childhood, intentionally encountered the emotions that come along with that goodbye, and welcomed him into young manhood, we're all reading from the same sheet of music, and the stage is set for his next developmental phase. It will be up to me and my wife to clarify what new responsibilities we expect him to fulfill, to resist the temptation to do for him what he can do for himself, and to provide new freedoms and opportunities as he demonstrates himself to be responsible and trustworthy. It's clear to me, even as I say this, that we've got our work cut out for us. In a sense, it really would have been easier not to have gone through this whole thing, not to have set our sights so high for him and for us. But it only would have been easier in the short term. In the long term, the unnecessary pain and hardship brought upon McGray, and by extension, upon ourselves, for failing to do our very best to equip him for life on his own, would far outweigh the temporary convenience of not creating the rite of passage experience. And so I ask you, where is ritual missing in your life? What rite of passage awaits that will make way for a new reality for you, your child, or a loved one? I'm glad to share the Rite of Passage guide and share more in depth about rites of passage and the experience we created for McGray with anyone who's interested. Find me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Andrew Petty Coach, or email me at andrew@digdeepwinbig.com. I'm so glad you tuned in today. Don't forget to follow this show, and I'll see you next time on Andrew Petty is Dying.